was a man of records, a former tax collector who understood lineage and law. When he stood at the foot of the cross, he didn't just see a man dying. He saw the King of the Jews fulfilling a destiny written in the stars and the soil. As the sun vanished for 3 hours, Matthew records something the others don't emphasize as heavily: the physical rebellion of the earth. Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. When Jesus cried these words, the Jewish crowd knew exactly what he was doing. He was quoting Psalm 22, the ancient song of the suffering king. Matthew wanted his readers to understand that this wasn't a moment of abandonment, but a moment of fulfillment. Then the ground began to shake. Matthew records that the rocks split and the very tombs of the righteous were thrown open. This wasn't just weather, it was a royal arrival. For Matthew, the king had to die to conquer the grave, and the earthquake was the sound of the prison doors of death being kicked open.
But move to the account of Mark, and the tone shifts. Mark's gospel is fast-paced, raw, and visceral. He was writing to Christians in Rome, people who knew all about power, suffering, and the iron fist of Caesar. In Mark's narrative, Jesus is the secret son. Throughout his ministry, he told people to stay quiet about his miracles. Why? Because Mark believed you couldn't truly know who Jesus was until you saw him at his weakest. Mark focuses on the great cry. To a Roman, crucifixion was designed to drain the lungs and silence the victim. A man dying on a cross shouldn't have the breath to shout. Yet Jesus let out a great bravado, a shout of supernatural power. The first person to understand wasn't a disciple. It was the centurion, a professional killer, a man who had seen 1,000 men die. When he saw how Jesus breathed his last, he uttered the words the Roman Empire feared most. Truly, this man was the Son of God. In the shadow of the cross, the pagan world finally saw the light.
Now, look through the eyes of Luke. He was a doctor, a man obsessed with the human condition and the marginalized. His account of the crucifixion is a masterpiece of compassion. While the other Gospels focus on the darkness, Luke focuses on the light of mercy. Only Luke records the words that have defined Christian ethics for centuries. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Imagine the scene: blood, mockery, and intense physical trauma. Yet Luke's Jesus is busy saving one last soul. The good thief hanging next to him recognizes a kingdom that isn't of this world. Jesus doesn't tell him he needs to go to the temple or perform a ritual. He says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." The word Luke uses for paradise is paradisos, a royal garden. To Luke, the cross was the gate back to the Garden of Eden. The great physician was healing the breach between God and man, one breath at a time.
Finally, we come to the most mysterious account, John. Written decades later, John's Gospel is a theological deep dive. Here, Jesus isn't just a victim or a servant, he is the sovereign Logos. In John's account, Jesus is in total control. He isn't having his life taken, he is laying it down. He stops to ensure his mother is cared for, a final act of domestic duty amidst a cosmic sacrifice. Then he speaks the most powerful word in the history of debt, Tetelestai. Commonly translated as "it is finished," this wasn't a sigh of relief, it was a victory shout. In the ancient world, if you finished a business contract or paid off a massive debt, you would write Tetelestai across the parchment. John wants us to know that at that exact moment, the spiritual ledger of the human race was balanced. The blood and water that flowed from his side weren't just medical markers of death, they were symbols of the new life and the new covenant.